Hey everyone, welcome back to English So-So. I'm Sam.
And I'm Jordan. Today we're talking about something that, honestly, I wish someone had told me years ago when I was paralyzed by my own perfectionism.
Ah, the perfectionist trap. You know what I'm talking about. When you know so much about English grammar and vocabulary that you're terrified to actually speak because it might not be perfect.
Yes, I used to spend literal minutes crafting the perfect response in my head, and by the time I was ready to speak, the conversation had moved on completely.
Or you'd rehearse sentences over and over in your mind, but then panic when the actual conversation went in a different direction than you planned.
Exactly. So today's episode is called The Perfectionist Trap. Why perfect English is killing your confidence and 3 ways to break free. If you've ever felt like your English knowledge is actually making you more anxious about speaking, this one's for you.
Before we dive in, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We're here every week tackling the real psychological barriers that hold English learners back.
All right, so let's start with a story that's probably going to sound familiar to a lot of you. Sam, you want to share your presentation disaster story?
Oh, God. Okay, so this was a few years ago. I had to give a presentation at work, and I spent weeks, perfecting every single sentence. I had backup phrases, alternative vocabulary, contingency plans for every possible question.
Uh-oh, I can see where this is going.
The day of the presentation comes, and literally the first question from the audience was something I hadn't prepared for. My mind went completely blank. All that perfect English I had memorized, gone. I just stood there like a deer in headlights.
Oh no. What happened?
I ended up mumbling some terrible, broken response and feeling like a complete failure. But here's the crazy part. Afterwards, my colleague said the presentation was great and the question I struggled with wasn't even that important.
And this perfectly illustrates the perfectionist trap. You had prepared perfect English, but real communication isn't about perfection. It's about connection and clarity.
Exactly. I was so focused on sounding perfect that I forgot the actual goal was just to communicate information clearly.
So let's break down why this happens. Why do English learners often become more anxious as their English knowledge increases?
I think the first reason is what I call the curse of knowledge. When you start learning English, you don't know what you don't know, so you're more willing to just try things and make mistakes.
Right, but as you learn more grammar rules, vocabulary, and exceptions, you become hyper-aware of all the ways you could mess up.
It's like learning to drive. When you're 5 years old, you think driving looks easy, but once you learn about traffic laws, road signs, and accident statistics, suddenly driving seems terrifying.
Perfect analogy. And with English, every grammar rule you learn comes with exceptions. Every vocabulary word has subtle connotations you might get wrong.
Plus, there's this misconception that advanced English learners should never make mistakes. Society expects beginners to struggle, but if you're intermediate or advanced, people expect perfection.
Oh, this is huge. When you're a beginner, people are impressed by any English you speak. But when you're advanced, they notice every small error.
And we internalize that pressure. We start thinking, I should know better every time we make a tiny mistake, even though native speakers make mistakes constantly.
Speaking of native speakers, this is something that really opened my eyes. I started paying attention to how native speakers actually talk. And guess what? They're constantly breaking grammar rules.
Yes, they say things like, me and John went to the store instead of John and I went to the store. They end sentences with prepositions they use literally to mean figuratively.
And most importantly, they don't apologize for it. They're not walking around thinking, oh no, I hope people don't judge me for my imperfect English.
Right. But English learners will say something 99% correctly and then immediately apologize. Sorry, my English is terrible.
Stop doing that. Your English isn't terrible. You're probably more grammatically correct than most native speakers.
Which brings us to the second big reason for the perfectionist trap. We're comparing our internal experience to other people's external performance.
Ooh, explain that one more.
So, When you speak English, you're hyper aware of every tiny hesitation, every word choice you're uncertain about, every moment where you're searching for vocabulary.
Right, but when you listen to others speak, you only hear the final product.
It's like Instagram, but for language. You're comparing your behind the scenes struggle to everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. You don't see native speakers thinking, wait, is it who or whom in this sentence? But they are.
Yes, you don't witness their internal process.
And the third reason, this one's subtle but important. Perfectionist English learners often treat every conversation like a test.
Yes, instead of thinking, I'm going to communicate with this person, they think, I need to prove that my English is good.
But communication and performance are totally different goals. When you're performing, you're focused on yourself and how you sound. When you're communicating, you're focused on the other person and sharing ideas.
And here's the irony. When you stop trying to sound perfect and start trying to connect, you actually sound more natural and confident.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now let's talk solutions. How do we break free from the perfectionist trap?
Solution number 1, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, deliberately make mistakes.
Wait, what? Did you just tell English learners to make mistakes on purpose?
I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Most perfectionists are so afraid of making mistakes that they never test their boundaries or try new things.
So by making controlled mistakes, like using a word you're not 100% sure about, or trying a grammar structure you're still learning, you prove to yourself that mistakes aren't catastrophic.
Exactly. I started doing this thing where I'd force myself to use at least one word I wasn't completely confident about in every conversation. And you know what happened?
People understood you anyway?
People understood me anyway. And the few times I did use a word incorrectly, they either figured out what I meant from context or they politely corrected me and I learned something new.
This is brilliant because it desensitizes you to the fear of imperfection. You realize that communication continues even when your English isn't textbook perfect.
Plus, it actually helps you learn faster. When you only use language you're 100% sure about, you never expand your skills. But when you take calculated risks, you grow.
Solution number 2, shift your success metrics from perfection to connection.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of judging a conversation by whether you made any grammar mistakes, judge it by whether you successfully communicated your ideas and connected with the other person.
Oh, that's good. So instead of thinking, I used the wrong preposition, this conversation was a failure, you think, they understood what I meant, and we had a good exchange.
Exactly. Did you make the other person laugh? Did you successfully explain your point? Did you learn something new about them? Those are much better measures of communication success.
And honestly, most people judge conversations by how they felt, not by whether your grammar was textbook correct.
Right. They'll remember that you were friendly, interesting, or helpful long before they remember any tiny language errors you made.
Plus, the sooner you let go of this idea of perfection, the sooner you can start enjoying the process of actually communicating.
Which brings us to solution number 3, and this is the big one. Embrace what I call good enough English.
Good enough English. I love this concept. Explain it more. So, good enough English means using language that's clear, understandable, and appropriate for the situation, even if it's not technically perfect.
It's like the 80-20 rule for language. You can communicate effectively with 80% accuracy, and chasing that last 20% of perfection often isn't worth the stress and hesitation it causes.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about good enough English is that it's still really good English. We're not talking about broken or unclear communication.
Right. We're talking about the difference between, I think this movie is really good, and I believe this cinematic production exhibits exceptional quality. Both communicate the same idea, but one flows naturally in conversation.
And here's something important. Good enough English in a casual conversation with friends looks different from good enough English in a job interview or business presentation.
Yes, it's about matching your language precision to the situation's requirements. You don't need Shakespeare-level eloquence to order coffee or chat with coworkers.
But perfectionists often use the same high standard for every situation. They'll spend 5 minutes crafting the perfect text message response.
Oh my God, yes. I used to rewrite WhatsApp messages like they were going to be published in a literary magazine.
Let's get practical. How do you actually implement these solutions day to day?
Great question. For solution one, deliberately making mistakes, start small. In low-stakes situations, try using words or phrases you're only 70% confident about.
Like if you're chatting with friends and you want to say exhausted, but you're not sure, try it anyway, instead of defaulting to very tired.
And for shifting your success metrics, I recommend doing a quick mental review after conversations. Instead of thinking, what mistakes did I make? Ask yourself, what did I successfully communicate?
That's such a healthier mindset. Focus on what went right instead of obsessing over tiny imperfections.
For good enough English, practice matching your language level to the situation. Ask yourself, what's the minimum clarity I need here to achieve my communication goal?
Right. Texting a friend about lunch plans? Simple, casual language is perfect. Writing a formal email to your boss? You might need more precision.
But even in formal situations, good enough doesn't mean sloppy. It means clear, appropriate, and confident rather than obsessively perfect.
Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but I want to improve my English. Won't accepting good enough make me lazy?
Great question. And the answer is no. If anything, it'll help you improve faster.
Exactly. When you're not paralyzed by perfectionism, you practice more. And practice is what actually improves your English, not endless mental rehearsing.
Plus, when you're focused on communication instead of perfection, you get real feedback from real conversations. That's much more valuable than theoretical grammar knowledge.
And here's the thing about improvement. It's not linear. You don't go from bad English to perfect English in a straight line. You get better by using English actively and authentically.
Right. Perfectionists often think they need to master everything before they can speak confidently. But confidence comes from experience, not from theoretical knowledge.
Let me give you a real example. I have a friend who's been studying English grammar for 8 years. He can explain the most complex grammar rules perfectly, but he still hesitates to order food at restaurants because he's afraid of making mistakes.
Meanwhile, I know people who've been using English confidently for just 2 years because they focused on communication from the beginning. Their grammar isn't perfect, but their English is functional and expressive.
And guess which group improves faster? The people who are actively using English in real situations, making mistakes, and learning from experience.
Now, let's talk about mindset shifts that can help with perfectionism.
First mindset shift, think of English as a tool, not a test. Tools don't have to be perfect to be useful.
Yes, a hammer doesn't have to be the most beautiful hammer in the world to build a house. English doesn't have to be perfect to communicate effectively.
Second mindset shift, embrace your English learner identity. You're not trying to trick people into thinking you're a native speaker. You're a competent English user with a unique perspective.
I love this. There's no shame in being an English learner. In fact, it's impressive that you can communicate in multiple languages.
Right. Native speakers can only communicate in one language fluently. You're developing skills they'll never have.
Third mindset shift. Focus on your message, not your medium. What are you trying to communicate? That's more important than how grammatically perfect your sentences are.
Exactly. If someone asks for directions and you successfully help them find their destination, it doesn't matter if you used turn right instead of proceed eastward.
Let's do a quick role play to demonstrate these concepts. Sam, I'm going to give you a perfectionist response to a situation, and you give me the good enough English alternative.
Ooh, I like this exercise. Go for it.
Situation. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" Perfectionist response. My weekend was quite pleasant and productive. I engaged in various recreational activities and completed several household obligations.
Okay, good enough English response. Pretty good. I hung out with friends and got some stuff done around the house. How about yours?
Perfect! Notice how the second response is more natural, includes a follow-up question, and actually creates better conversation flow.
And it communicates the exact same information, but it sounds like a real human instead of a formal report.
Let's try another one. Situation. You disagree with someone's opinion about a movie. Perfectionist response. While I respect your perspective, I must respectfully disagree with your assessment of the film's cinematic merits.
Okay, good enough English response. Really? I actually didn't love it. What did you like about it?
Yes! The perfectionist response sounds like a debate. The natural response sounds like a conversation.
And the natural response is more likely to lead to an interesting discussion because it shows genuine curiosity about the other person's viewpoint.
Now, before we wrap up, let's address one more thing. What if you're in a high-stakes situation where precision really matters?
Great question. Even in professional or academic contexts, good enough English doesn't mean careless English.
Right. It means appropriate English. For a job interview, you want clear, professional communication, but you don't need to sound like a textbook.
And honestly, even in formal situations, people appreciate authenticity over perfection. Employers want to hire real humans, not grammar robots.
Plus, if you're confident and clear in your communication, small imperfections won't matter. But if you're hesitant and constantly apologizing for your English, that will be much more noticeable.
Exactly. Confidence covers a multitude of minor language sins, and confidence comes from practice, not from perfectionism.
All right, let's summarize the 3 ways to break free from the perfectionist trap.
Number 1, deliberately make mistakes in low-stakes situations to desensitize yourself to the fear of imperfection.
Number 2, shift your success metrics from perfection to connection. Judge conversations by whether you communicated effectively, not by whether you were grammatically flawless.
Number 3, embrace good enough English, language that's clear, appropriate, and confident, even if it's not technically perfect.
And remember, your goal is communication, not performance. When you focus on connecting with people instead of impressing them, your English naturally becomes more effective.
Before we sign off, I want to say something to our perfectionist listeners. Your high standards aren't bad. They show that you care about quality and respect for others.
Absolutely. But perfectionism becomes a problem when it prevents you from taking action. The goal is to channel that quality focus in a way that helps rather than hinders your communication.
Your English is probably much better than you think it is, and it's definitely good enough to have meaningful conversations and build real connections.
So give yourself permission to be human. Make mistakes. Learn from them. Keep improving. But don't let the pursuit of perfection prevent you from the joy of communication.
All right, everyone, that's a wrap for today's episode. If this helped you recognize some perfectionist tendencies in your own English learning, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more mindset-shifting content.
And drop a comment below. Tell us what's one perfectionist habit you're going to work on changing. We love hearing about your breakthroughs.
Next week, we're talking about English anxiety, why your brain goes blank in conversations, and what to do about it.
Another one that hits close to home for many learners.
Until then, practice good enough English, embrace your mistakes, and remember, done is better than perfect.
See you next week, English So-So family.
Peace.